Somewhere in the Skies with your host, Ryan Sprague.
And welcome to the 400th episode of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, that was our Jason McClellan mega mix of intros he's created for me throughout the years. They're now all become an amalgamation of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast going into 2025. 400 episodes, guys. We are here live tonight with three of my favorite UFO podcasters and people in this field, and not just colleagues, but friends. So with me, I have Rob Kristoffersen, formerly of the Our Strange Skies podcast, and welcome UFO people. I have Jason McClellan from Rogue Planet and UFO UAP WTF. And last but certainly not least, we have Steve Berg from High Strangeness. Gentlemen, welcome to the 400th episode of Somewhere in the Skies.
Congratulations. Woo, buddy, that's huge.
Dude.
That
is huge.
I did 4,000 more. Only 4,000 more. Now let's stop.
Yeah. You know, this is only the beginning. Like, there are other podcasters that have gotten up to like 700. Like, I'm not going to name the one guy, but he's like in the thousands. I think you got a long ways to go. Is what I'm saying.
Rob, always the realist, keeping me modest and humble. 400, Ryan. That's nothing.
Yeah, you just finished.
I get so much crap for it at work.
Yeah.
No, I got to thank all three of you for joining me tonight, guys. I know you have busy schedules. We're all in all different time zones. I'm over here in the UK, so it's going on 8:30. So I got a beer tonight. I don't know what you guys are drinking over where you are, but we're going to celebrate tonight. You guys know me. You know me. I usually have 10 pages of notes for every episode of my podcast going into these things, but I didn't prepare a damn thing tonight because I knew that all I had to do is come up with a title for the episode and you guys would take care of the rest. So tonight I'm calling this episode UFOs Past, Present, and Future. Yes, I stole the title from the Robert Ebeneger book and the documentary that was, I think at one point titled the same thing, hosted by Rod Serling back in 1974. So that's what we're sort of going to be doing tonight, guys. We're going to be talking UFOs past, present, future, where the topic's been, where it is now, and where it's hopefully going in the future, or where it is going in the future, and everything in between. But I do want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Again, we are live tonight. I rarely ever do this for a podcast recording, but I thought it'd be fun. Get listeners, regulars involved and everything. So we'll be putting up your questions and comments tonight, guys. But I have talked enough. Let's catch the audience up on each of you guys, if you don't mind. So let's get the elevator pitches from each of you. What got you interested in this topic we're going to be talking about tonight, UFOs? And what made you do the crazy thing like I did and attempt to do a podcast about it? Rob, you're right next to me on my screen. So why don't you start first, buddy?
I've always been interested in weird stuff. It's that upbringing on unsolved mysteries and a lot of the other weird and strange shows that were occurring on various TV networks in the 90s, and just kind of hung around in the background until I had a personal sighting in 2015 at work. I've talked endlessly about it. I just saw a giant big egg at work one day, and it kind of just led me down UFO research. I've been researching this topic for almost 10 years now, and 2 years after I started that, I had a bunch of friends that were doing podcasts and decided to throw my hat in the ring, and that became Our Strange Skies, and it went on in various forms for about 7 years until I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. And yeah, so I'm the only retired podcaster in this group.
Retired but never forgotten,
Yeah,
buddy.
living down in Naples with the, getting that sun with the mirror thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, from all that money I made from like spending thousands of dollars on out-of-date books and not recouping nearly enough for it. Yeah.
Rob and I always had this contest. He didn't know about it, but we had this unspoken contest. Whenever he would buy a vintage UFO book, I had to try to one-up him, and I would try to get an older edition, a more rare book, one of which is right behind me now. I've got, what is that? Operation Trojan Horse by John Keel.
Oh, nice.
That's one of my favorites.
But that's what this topic is all about. And I mean, the next person I want to talk to, we have been friends for decades and decades now, inside and outside of the UFO topic. And we always, we were like spotters for each other at the gym. We always held each other accountable. We always, shared the latest news that we would hear. We've worked together so much. So I'm going to throw it over to you, buddy, Jason McClellan. Like I said, I have known you for probably over 20 years now at this point when it comes to UFOs. So give us as much as you can, buddy, the origin story of how you got interested in this topic, maybe a little bit about some of the work you've done in the past and everything in between.
Yeah, absolutely. So first I will apologize. It's been quiet here all day, and now I hear that neighbors have like yard workers over or something. So leaf blowers are going because that's what happens when you record podcasts. You can't have a podcast without leaf blowers.
Leaf blowers, where are you living?
Yeah. Talk about retired and living the big life.
I'm in Phoenix. It's like 85 degrees here. It's wonderful. So
it's -6.
That makes sense.
Sunny and 85. Loving it.
Yeah.
All right. So origin story, Ryan. Yeah. So I always like to say UFOs landed in my lap. They really did. I didn't have a UFO specific interest growing up. I did, of course, have a fascination with all things strange. And I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I frequently gazed at the night sky, pondering, the mysteries of the universe. I grew up on Star Wars and Star Trek, so I was a big sci-fi nerd. But UFOs really didn't enter my picture specifically until I was approached by somebody with an offer to form a company all about UFOs and extraterrestrials. I was doing marketing for a medical company, and the owner of that company came in one day and said, I want to start a company all about UFOs. And I said, I've never had this conversation before. Never had anybody come in my office and say that. I'm fascinated. Tell me more. And so we got talking, and eventually that's what happened. I transitioned over and helped start a media company focused on UFOs and extraterrestrials. That was the company Open Minds Production. And with that company, it was essentially the only company of its kind. To the Stars kind of got into that realm, but we were the only full-fledged for-profit media company focused solely on UFOs and extraterrestrials. We published an internationally distributed print magazine. We had our website that we updated every day with the latest UFO-related news. We produced the largest annual UFO conference in the world and got that recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records. We had a studio, a production studio in our office. So we would produce our own television, radio, web content. So we started doing a UFO podcast back then and web series and things like that. So that was my real introduction to the world of UFOs, getting thrown to the wolves right away. And I had to get up to speed very quickly because we found ourselves all of a sudden becoming very central to the UFO community as this only entity of its kind. And, we were with our conference and with the magazine, we were dealing and interacting and forming friendships and relationships with all the leading researchers in the UFO field. So these people are coming to our office all the time. Some of them we acquired their archives of decades worth of research. So it was an interesting world to get thrown into. And with the conference, we were having all these people speak at our conference. So, rubbing elbows, having a seat at the big kids table, as people like to say now, but having conversations with top-ranking government and military officials, leading UFO researchers, people who have done this their entire lives. It was a very, very fast education, just to be thrown into that world of UFOs, deep down all those rabbit holes that go along with it.
Absolutely, man. And I will always have you and Maureen and Alejandro and Michael and everyone over at Open Minds to thank for really getting me, I guess you'd call it my start in this community, if you'd even want to call it that. I mean, you guys were so welcoming to, amateur researchers out there who just wanted to like cut their teeth, write an article, send in any, witness videos or photos that we had. And it was really you guys who let me write some articles for the magazine. And that's really where I got my start before I started writing books, before I ever podcasted. I would come and volunteer every year at the UFO Congress backstage and run all the audio and everything. So many amazing
out at our parties and see drunk Nick Pope and
mind you, one beer Nick Pope would have, and he would start spitting out the MOD secrets that everyone has always wanted. That's all it ever took.
He loves doing impersonations too. When he's drunk, he starts doing voices and man.
So there are articles in which they call him, the real life Fox Mulder. Does he become any more Fox Mulderish like when he's drunk? I need to know this.
Maybe in the funnier episodes, like the Darren Morgan ones, or that one where he gets like tripping on LSD or whatever.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'd say that. But no, I mean, Jason and I have been through a lot together. We've we've been in an elevator drunk with Giorgio Tsoukalos. We have what else? We got kicked out of a casino together.
Yeah.
Yep. We've seen it all. We've almost seen UFO researchers get in a fight. Dolan and James Fox almost went.
Oh man, we saw so many brawls and almost brawls. Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's what I miss.
I need.
That's what I miss. No, it's not these days of
the pure unadulterated, madness.
I want to fight a ufologist. I have not. That's like on my new UFO bucket list. I'm ready.
To happen.
Maybe somebody will want to fight me after this. I don't know. We'll see.
I think all four of us are going to have targets on our backs after this.
I think so.
I already do,
I'm sure.
Before we get to some of the more past reminiscing, which I really want to do with you guys, Steve, I'm going to throw it over to you, buddy. Now, my first time ever encountering you, my man, was on Drunk History when you did the most incredible homage to the Roswell UFO incident, and you cheersed the ufologists out there, and it literally brought a tear to my eye.
Oh,
and I reached out to you after that, and you were so awesome. You came on the show, and we started talking, and we've been friends ever since. But enough about my perception.
No, but dude, that was so fun. I remember because I was a fan of yours, and I was like, oh wow, really? Someone wants to know what I think about UFOs? Because I think maybe I was on Greg Bishop's podcast before that, but I had never really been approached about my thoughts on this stuff, and I probably was talking 1,000 miles an hour because I was like, I had like these 30 years of pent up stuff I want to say about UFOs. And like, that was kind of my introduction into the UFO community or whatever. But anyways, like Rob, I was just a kid who loved 40-Ana as a kid, all of it, palmistry, spontaneous human combustion, UFOs, of course. And, I started my podcast because there was an actor strike. And I was not allowed to take a job because I'm in the union. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a long one. It ended up being over a year. And I was like, I'm going to lose my mind if I don't do something. So I was like, I guess I'll start a podcast. And but it truly, it was I love doing it. Like I'm still kind of, only a year and a half into it. And just to be able to talk to people about these subjects, at a granular level is so satisfying for me. Because I spent most of my life in the UFO weirdo closet. Because it's not something you really talk about on like a TV set. Otherwise, it'd be like, don't hire the weirdo anymore. Like, so I always kind of like, people knew I liked the stuff, but like not how much time and how many books I read my entire life and still continue to. So yes, I am deeply passionate, still excited about it. I mean, I'm just like a young kid out there.
It's so contagious, man. I love listening to your show with my morning coffee.
Thank you.
And hearing all about all this 14 stuff, because I'm steeped in UFOs. That's been my life for a long time. But I love when like you and Rob will get together on the show and start talking like humanoid cases, or you'll have a someone on like John Tenney and stuff like that. May I just say I'm so happy Steve started a podcast, Sonia says. So
hey Sonia. I know Sonia. She is
go.
amazing. I love her.
Thank you, Sonia. So happy to have you here. The ufologist professional wrestling, J. Allen Heineken says. Love it.
I mean, it's the ultimate crossover for you, Ryan. Like, two podcasts coming together right there.
They're coming together. Who would each of us be in the wrestling world, guys? Let us know in the chat right now, if you will. Memories, Jason. I want to go back to you for a minute, buddy. We're in UFOs, the past. In working with Open Minds, you did work with To the Stars for a little while as well. You obviously started Rogue Planet, which has been a huge success too. What have been some of your most like memorable moments through all of doing these, what we could say is professional ufology, if we want to use that term? Like, I know you've seen some weird stuff, you've heard some weird stuff, you've been in rooms with some of these individuals that like a lot of people hold to a lot of acclaim, others not so much. But are there any moments that really stick out to you in your past with ufology that will bring us some laughs, or maybe some, I don't know, some tears as well?
Well, I mean, it's hard to not immediately think of some of the more ridiculous moments because, of course, there are so many of those. I mentioned, how we had people coming out of the woodwork to, come and visit us at the office and try to get involved somehow, translation, try to get money from us. And, one of those was the, former wife and daughter of Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider,
Whoa.
Wonderful story if you don't know, but publicly claimed that he worked for the U.S. government as part of a contracting group and digging tunnels and underground alien bases and firefights with aliens, and claimed he got his fingers blown off by an alien laser gun. And he's one of the people a lot of people like to point to say, oh, he was silenced, he was executed because of what he was saying publicly about aliens and UFOs. The data says something different. It does point to suicide, and that is in line with what we knew about him. But it didn't stop his wife and daughter from trying to sell us corpse photos of Phil Schneider.
Oh my
God.
As he's dead. Really disgusting, really sleazy. But this kind of stuff is pretty common in this field. Unfortunately, there's a lot of unfortunate things that happen like that. So that's a more morbid story. But another one involves, Jaime Maussan. Jaime is a Mexican journalist, very, very popular in Mexico. And, I had the fortune and pleasure. I mean, Jaime is a wonderfully nice guy. I will say that. He became a friend over the years. And I always tell the story because it sounds more mysterious than it was, but he randomly showed up at my wedding with Danny Sheehan. He just randomly showed up at my wedding and bummed my free drinks. And it was very, very interesting. But Jaime, I did spend a lot of time with. He was a regular speaker at the UFO Congress. He was a crowd favorite. And Open Minds did a lot of work with him. And people might remember the Metapet creature. People love talking about non-human biologics and non-human intelligence, all of this stuff, the claims of David Grush that we have these non-human biologics. But I've actually handled alien bodies several times during my career. These people that bring forth these alien bodies and have DNA testing and all of these scientists, just like the recent corpses that we saw paraded in Mexico City.
Yeah.
You know,
The dry boys,
done that
the dry
many
boys.
times before. In one of those
They look
creatures,
delicious. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
tasty. But you know, he's done this many times before, and one of those creatures, you can see lots of shows did specials on this creature. It was called the Metapet creature, and that's a creature that we at Open Minds purchased. Because the owner of the company was very, very much sold on this idea that it was very anomalous, that it had the scientific testing to back up that this thing was alien. So I went to Mexico City and met with Jaime, held this creature in my hands, gave it a little kiss, and so forth. But that turned out to be a poor monkey. But it wasn't the only alien that I mean, we bought that for many tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh.
Yeah, but at least that's what records show. I don't claim to have that knowledge, but you can find records out there that show that tens of thousands of dollars were spent on that alien creature. But Jaime
Is that
also
tax
tried
deductible?
it might be for most UFO groups, right? Because most UFO groups are nonprofit. We were not a nonprofit
Noted.
organization. So,
Okay.
but
So we're going to come out of the other end of this thing with a nonprofit.
Oh yeah.
There you go. But another funny story related to buying aliens, basically, was he tried to put us in contact with this woman who was trying to sell a photo of an alien. She had this photo on her phone that showed her with this like microscopic alien, not microscopic, but very tiny, standing on the ground next to her. And she's just like posing with this alien. And I remember Jaime coming to us and trying to sell us that photo. And Maureen Ellsbury and I looked at this thing. We're like, you got to be kidding me. And we very quickly tracked down the phone app that this was just a filter, a thing that you could create an alien standing next to you. And we went to a bar and I took a photo of the alien sitting on the bar with me. It was the same alien, but you know, unscrupulous individuals are out there all the time. And, you know, new apps come out all the time and you're just not aware of this stuff. And that was the glory for me, being entrenched in the UFO subject day in and day out. It was my full-time job, you know, so I was up to date, up to speed on all of that stuff. So it made, you know, identifying some of this BS, you know, much more easy than it is now when I'm far removed from it. But, you know, stories like that happened all the time. And they were some of the more ridiculous ones.
Yeah, we do miss Maureen. Hello to Michael Huntington. Hopefully she'll be watching tonight, knowing Jason's here as well. We miss you, Maureen. We hope you can join us for the 500th episode. That's for sure. She did come visit me here in Scotland. We tipped back some beers and had some good memories for sure.
That's awesome.
Now, Rob, I want to get to you in just a sec, buddy. But Jason, these were the more ridiculous things that you basically could prove were hoaxes. And
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, that's 99% of being a ufologist. Let's
Sure.
be completely honest. It's that 5%, 1%, whatever, you know, number ufologists pull out of their pocket when it comes to like how much of this is actually legitimate. There seems to be a percentage of this stuff that is actually happening. Were there any moments in all of that, dealing with these people, seeing evidence, going out on active investigations, even any moments where you were like, holy shit, like I can't believe this is my job and I can't believe this might actually be real? Anything like that?
Yeah. So, you know, thinking about Wendell Stevens' archive was a fascinating thing to go through, because he had probably the largest photo archive that existed at the time. And, you know, he had just binders and binders of printed photos, but also loads and loads of film that wasn't developed that, you know, we could look through too. So just spending hours and days and weeks and months just kind of combing through these photos was fascinating, because a lot of them were this was all film, you know, pre-digital imaging. And just some of these images were UFOs I'd never seen before, really fascinating and difficult to wrap your head around, you know, what those things could be. Some of them were very cheesy, you know, a lot of them were from very popular time in hoaxing UFO photos. And Wendell Stevens was very central to, you know, the Billy Meyer photos and bringing those forward. And he had many books that he published with the Billy Meyer photos. And I'm very clear on where I stand on the Billy Meyer photos, which not real.
Yeah. Don't let
and-
Michael Horn hear that.
Be careful, Michael Horn.
Michael Horn will bust down in his sweatpants and come yell at me.
Yeah.
I know.
Honestly, what we need
He's-
more of now,
shame
more
all of
than
us.
ever, is photos of arms wrapped in tinfoil with fake
Yeah.
laser guns.
That's
We
my
need more of
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Well, here,
Yeah.
I won't stay on the Billy Meyer thing, but I always point to this. You don't have to, choose a side. All you have to do is think logically and listen to Billy's own words. He said that his photos were fake, right? I mean, you don't need to go beyond that. He was caught and he said that, the CIA, I think he blamed the CIA or the FBI, I forget which one, which neither makes sense. But like the FBI stole his film that he dropped off to be developed and switched it out. They recreated all the photos he took. They recreated them perfectly and slipped them back in. So the photos he'd been promoting are fake photos, but not because he faked them, because the FBI faked them.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
I mean,
Perfect.
that's ridiculous. And, people love giving passes to people. Oh, that's just an innocent mistake. Or, he really was, targeted because his stuff is so important. But I don't know. I don't have that patience for people. I think that past behavior is a good indicator. So it is what it is. But
artistically speaking, the photographs I think are gorgeous.
They're some of the best UFO photos. I mean,
so
we see them in the
beautiful.
X-Files poster, right? I mean, they are
They're beautiful.
iconic. I love those photos.
I do too.
And photos from that time period. Wendell had so many of them, and they are just really cool photos to look at. So that was interesting. But Ryan, in terms of something that's more like, holy shit, this is like, really making me stop and think, or making me give more evidence pointing to the reality of something, far stranger, really focused on extraterrestrial life. We tried to insert science more into this discussion at the UFO Congress, and bringing in people like scientists, government officials, military personnel, people that were credentialed who could speak on this topic. And one of those people I was really proud to bring to the Congress was Richard Hoover from NASA, who essentially started part of their astrobiology program. And Richard Hoover, one of the leading astrobiologists, gave a presentation and plainly said, we've already discovered extraterrestrial life. Right? He had the science to back it up, and these are highly debated research. Some of them aren't published in very good journals. That is a red flag. That is problematic. But when you have somebody who is a career scientific specialist who started NASA's astrobiology program, pointing to science and saying, "Look, based on my knowledge, based on what I know, I'm saying that is proof of extraterrestrial life," that gives you pause, makes you think about it, and certainly deserves more consideration in my mind than like assholes like you and me, just UFO researchers saying, "Oh, I read something, or somebody briefed me, or gave me insider information, so trust me, bro." Like, no, I mean, I love hearing from these people, and Richard Hoover was one of those guys. It was amazing being able to spend time with him and have him get on the stage and share that with everybody.
Well, and someone like Richard Hoover, or you could even compare him to someone today like an Avi Loeb, who they ask these questions, they get ridiculed, they get laughed at, they get, everyone comes out of the woodwork to try to prove them wrong. And that's the point. Somebody has to ask the question in order for other scientists to then be like, let me look at it. Let me look at the data. Let's see. Let's see. So again, yes, I always appreciated that open minds would do that. I mean, you always had astrophysicists and former astronauts and people like that at the conference. There was always such a healthy balance. So I truly appreciated that. Rob, I want to move to you, buddy. Now you're known as like the new Jerome Clark. I'm just gonna say it, man. Like,
Stop
you are
it.
the
No.
UFO encyclopedia.
Put that on me.
Come on.
You
Come
are.
on.
Jerry Clark Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
So in all of your research, man, what, besides seeing an egg-shaped UFO, which is so appropriate for what's going on in the UFO world today, which we will get to.
Yeah.
Other than your own personal sighting, I know you've had paranormal experiences as well. If you want to talk about that, please feel free. But is there anything in your own research or in Our Strange Skies that you discovered where you were like, wow, Like I'm in deeper than I ever thought I could be, and the world is far stranger than I ever thought. Yeah. What in your past with this topic has kept you? You might not be doing the podcast, but you're on my show. You're still talking to fellow UFO researchers, staying up to date on stuff. What has kept your curiosity piqued with this topic?
So for me, the main reason that I stopped doing the podcast is because I have, and this is going to sound like such a BS thing to say. I've figured it out enough for me where I don't need to continue to kind of stress myself out with it, because content creation it's a hard game to be in. It is not easy to do. It's a grind. It really is, because you have to put out stuff on a consistent basis. And if the stuff that you're putting out requires a lot of work that goes into it in order to put it out, the returns on investment, and it's not even the monetary aspect, because I'm not really worried about that, but like the mental aspect, if I'm not getting anything back from it, I just can't do it. So for me, I got to a point looking into this topic and where my line of thinking went, that I figured it out enough to where I can spend a little bit more time exploring it in my own way and maybe come out of it with something different, because I feel like this topic has kind of just spun its wheels for decades now at this point. And I respect all the people that have thrown their names in the hat, and there are some people I don't respect that have thrown their names into the ring and such, just given how this topic has kind of been exploited by a bunch of military officials that left their jobs and now come forward with wild claims of this, that, this, and that, and then they don't tell you anything because NDAs. But for me, I just feel like I connected with it on such a deeper level that I can explore it in different ways that it doesn't look like UFO research. So like these days, I do like write like I'll on the Substack that I have, I publish like a little humanoid story once every week. But I also do like fiction stories, and I'm really focused in writing and the artwork that we're doing with Welcome UFO People. We were supposed to have our first scripting session today, but unfortunately that fell through. But we're approaching things differently with that. But for me, I think when I think about my own experiences too, I always felt like there was a message that I just wasn't getting. And I feel like I finally got it now. And that's enough to the point where I can explore it in different ways, in ways that aren't wearing me down, that are rewarding. You'll hear me on other people's podcasts and on the internet just like going off on things that probably wouldn't make sense, but to me they do. So I'm full on like weirdo crank at this point. I'm just like, throw me in the loony bin, I'm there, man.
You took the express route, baby. Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
We got there, but it's just like I don't want to be, and I've had conversations with Steve about this. It's like, I don't think this is a phenomenon that wants you to become obsessed with it, but it can't help but make you obsessed about it because it is so nuanced and so unique, and it is very individualized, even though I don't think most people think it is. Like, I am very much of the mind that all of these encounters that people have are staged for their benefit or for not their benefit. I don't know, but I don't think that they are random chance anything. I don't think it's a bunch of people just right place at the right time. I think it is very much a staged event that these people are supposed to witness. And that kind of line of thinking has kind of connected me to more literary topics like magical realism. I think there's a lot of connection between this phenomenon and magical realism. I also feel that there's just like a lot of ways that I could go with this, but yeah, I just feel that I've got a deeper sense of what it is, and I can explore it in a new and different way.
Oh, man, that's so cool. And that's the thing with this topic that I love, and I continue to love, and I will always love, is like everyone has their gateway into it, whether it's a personal sighting, it's just a book they picked up, or a
Mhm.
movie saw, or whatever. It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you're on your own journey. You're satisfied with
Mm.
the answers you've uncovered. But I'm not there yet. Like
Right.
maybe Jason's not there yet. And everyone's on their own sort of timeline with all of this stuff, which I think is fascinating. I just interviewed Jacques Vallée a few days ago, and I mean, there's no getting around it. The dude is like 83, 84, something like that. And
Mhm.
towards the end of the interview, something that really shook me is when he said, I don't think I'm ever gonna know the answers to this
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
And it is so damn refreshing to hear a ufologist, I guess, say that, because he was good friends with J. Allen Hynek. And we all know the story of how, like, I guess kind of sombering or depressing it was when Hynek died. Like, some of his last words were, "Still, they won't tell me. Still, I don't know the answers to this."
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he left this world not knowing. And he was very, like, you know, bummed out about that. Whereas someone like Jacques has accepted someone later in their life who, none of us are promised another day on this earth.
Mhm.
He's getting to that age where he's really starting to reflect on his life, his work throughout the decades, his personal journey. And to hear him say, like, I don't think I'm ever gonna know what UFOs are or aren't.
Yeah.
I found that pretty cool. I did.
Mhm.
It's what you do with that journey. So,
Mhm.
Steve, I'm gonna throw it to you, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, what keeps you going, man? What in the past of ufology has kept it going and doing the show?
The thing that keeps me going with ufology is that I have no belief system wrapped into it. I am constantly, I mean, like, I'm not trying to sound like highfalutin, but I am evolving how I look at this and approach this stuff. Where I'm very into art. I'm a deep appreciative of art. I, make my living in the arts, and so I tend to have a more artistic lens when it comes to this stuff. Like, I feel like, kind of like what Rob was saying, staged events. I look at a lot of UFOs as theater, which sounds crazy, but I do think there's something to be said that this stuff is like, feels like a lot of times a display to me that we don't understand. And I'm speaking of Jacques Vallée. He always uses that great analogy where they'll be showing a UFO on a movie screen or whatever. So, or like, no, he says, like, people can take a UFO experience two different ways. They can go to watch Rambo, or they can be watching Bambi. And he's like, I'm not necessarily concerned with what on screen. I want to go back to the projection booth and find out how the mechanism works.
Mhm.
That's projecting it. So I've always thought of that analogy that really kind of goes along with what I feel and what excites me about it. But like, I do think there is art and philosophy might end up telling us more about UFOs than science. Like, I'm just not, I love science. I'm a big believer in science, the scientific method, no doubt. But I'm not a science guy. I don't understand it through a scientific lens at all. I just trust that other people's data is correct, I guess. So using kind of an art lens for me makes it endlessly fascinating. Like, even taking, like, because I do feel like UFOs and high strangeness and Forteana, whether people like it or not, or know it or not, and folklore I would include too, has heavily influenced society and our
Mhm.
perceptions of the other, and are we alone, or what happens to us when we die, all that stuff. High strangeness and all UFOs and all stuff plays a major role in our lives, even if you're not into it. Like, so I know that sounds really kind of like woo woo and more philosophical, but that's just what entertains me. Like, I think it was Jeffrey Kripal who said, when you get into UFOs, you start reading about UFOs for the first 2 years. On the year 3, you're reading about Arabian mystics from 2,000 years ago. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like UFOs have led me to learn about fairy culture and, indigenous peoples folklore. And all these stories sound the narrative is the same. It's just the cultural lens that seems to change from how people experience it. So I like the philosophical artistic approach. It just entertains me endlessly. So, and I think it's actually more important UFOs are than people think.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I know. I'm like envisioning like this theater troupe in the wet, hot American summer van going out there and like setting up their stage and being like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go try to do a one-man or like
Right.
a show just for this one person over
Yeah.
here, and then they'll tell someone else to come the next time. Like,
Right.
totally get
Well,
it.
it's like, when you think about Rob's show, and Rob is a perfect example, because when you hear, especially in the 60s and 70s, the sheer variance of what people were seeing hopping off these UFOs, it makes you start to think like the ETH of like, wow, so if we're to believe a lot of these stories, or even just 1% of them, we're being visited by a lot of different looking creatures and a lot of different looking craft. And I mean, sure, it could be multiple species of aliens coming to visit us. Maybe it was just Earth was a popular place back then, but it also leads me more down a theatrical role, where I think a lot of it is weirder for us for a reason. I don't have any evidence though. That's just my weird break theories.
There's an interesting parallel I kind of want to draw here. In one of my favorite novels of last year is this book called Glorious Exploits by he's an Irish writer named Ferdy Lennon, and it is a story set during the Peloponnesian War, just after the Athenians failed in a conquering, I believe it's Sicily. Yeah. And there's a bunch of Athenian prisoners of war, and they're just these two out-of-work potters on the island. And they decide that throughout all of this like havoc, all this war, they're going to get together all of these Athenian prisoners and put on a play. And just like it's a story about like the redeeming power of art. And I think that a lot of that connects into like this topic, like the way in which it influences art, especially if you look at
big time
like UFO imagery, like sketches throughout the decades. You can see certain trends, like David Perkins was always big on this, the idea of the meme. And one of the like current kind of UFO memes that is still really popular these days is a cow being beamed up by a UFO. Before it was a cow being beamed up by a UFO, what you would most commonly see in these sketches is kind of a smallish UFO with a transparent dome and two aliens inside. So like art definitely plays a part. It influences, like the topic influences like art all throughout. So like I think that kind of connects into that human element of how these topics can kind of inspire us in different ways. Just in whether that's like going down a certain path in life, you take on a certain career path after you have like a UFO sighting or something like that, or you do something that you've never done before. And I think, part of my belief is that UFOs for certain people do play a role in that. And it does help them find their way.
I joke on my show quite a bit, and I mean I'm kind of serious when I say it though, but I do feel like UFOs and Forteana in general is kind of an emerging art form, if you want it to be. And I think to me it is like the way like y'all talk about it sounds like you're talking about art to me,
right?
Like it really does. So
exactly, I know.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's your interpretation at this point. We don't know. Nobody knows. So
yeah, and what is art other than interpretation? It's beautiful. I love it, man. Okay, I want to move to present. We're on the present of UFOs. Things have changed a lot. A lot of people point to 2017 New York Times article that always seems to be like the linchpin in the quote unquote new ufology. Rob brought up the issue of the military, intelligence officials, things like this. There's no getting around it. It has plagued the topic for a while now. Infiltrated, perhaps, is another word a lot of people would use. And it's been there. Like Jason can attest, these sorts of intelligence people have been in this topic since the very beginning. I mean, there were freaking Russian spies at UFO conventions back in the 50s and the 60s. Like they have admitted it as such. However, it seems to be like what's going on now. Like we're talking about congressional UFO hearings, former intelligence people coming out, whistleblowers, this, that. So Jason, I want to go back to you, buddy, for UFOs in the present. What do you see happening right now? And what has the past taught you about what we're dealing with right now with this topic? And yeah, what do you make of ufology going on right now?
Sure. So I'm a big fan of history, and I think it's important for everybody to have a good grasp of history when they're talking about a topic like this. And if you look at UFO history, it is indeed very cyclical. Things that happen from UFO history are guaranteed to emerge again and again and again. I mean, we're seeing that now on a much more accelerated cycle than has historically been the case. Things are coming around and around all the time that have been there before, been sort of left back in the closet where they belong and reemerged. Seeing a lot of the same problems that have plagued UFO research in the past, being the same problems coming up today. But as you pointed out, military and the government have always had a role in UFO discourse, in that established UFO lore. The government and the military essentially created much of our UFO lore, right? The military essentially created their own story of the military or government covering up UFOs, right? That started with Roswell, with the military itself issuing a press release and then pulling that press release back. That was sort of the birth of this notion that the government covers up information about UFOs. But leading UFO research groups have always been full of former, but maybe not former, maybe still current intelligence officials, former military people, government officials. That's always been the case. And now we're in this odd time where the military and the government are the primary drivers of UFO discourse. They're the ones pushing the narrative. And, we have people like Lou Elizondo and these people who still actively work with the government. We're not clear on all of these people's, affiliations, but a lot of them do have contracts for government work with Space Force and things like that. They are called in as advisors. They are actively, I won't use the term lobbying, but it's essentially lobbying. It's pushing and actively contributing to the language that's being introduced in legislation. And this is, so let me back up and say appearances. Public appearances play a big role in what gets elevated in UFO discourse, right? We see a seemingly important person say something about UFOs, and that gets taken more credibly or seriously because of that person's perceived importance or their status or their title, whatever it may be. Paul Hellyer was a great example of this. He was the former Ministry of Defense for Canada, and he made tremendous headlines when he publicly, multiple times, and even at conferences and things, would go around talking about his public belief or personal belief about UFOs and about the number of beings, the different species of aliens that walk among us here on Earth. All of these things made tremendous headlines because he was the Minister of Defense for Canada. However, he wasn't saying what he was saying based on personal knowledge or things he learned in his official capacity as the Minister of Defense for Canada. He was saying things he read in books written by Timothy Good. He was saying things that friends of his told him. And like a lot of these people in the military and in the government, they're forming their beliefs and using as the basis for their actions this belief in people they know, Well, oh, I trust that person because he's got such and such a title, or I've known him for 10 years and he would never lie, or he wouldn't tell me something that's not true. So I'm accepting that as gospel going forward, adopting that into my personal mindset and pushing that information out into the world and telling everybody else this is 100% fact because so-and-so told me. That's what we're dealing with right now, is a lot of this perceived knowledge, but not actual knowledge. As we already covered, this topic is very personal. It's an individual pursuit. All of us take in and analyze UFO information differently. We listen to what others say and decide whether we're going to apply that to our personal beliefs or reject that. You know, we weigh the evidence that we're presented on an individual basis. So right now there's a big push at the congressional level, the government, and with a lot of UFO personalities trying to force ideas into the discussion, into the narrative, and say, this is the reality, when we don't have the facts to back up those claims, to say, this is the reality, this is the gospel that you all must follow, right? Forcing other people to believe a certain way is a big problem in my mind. UFOs isn't a religion. It is primarily individualized beliefs. But that's the thing, it's individualized belief. This isn't an organized religion. We don't have one way of thinking that we tell you must believe this way. If not, you're on the wrong side, you're an enemy, you're a debunker, whatever, let's dox you. Like, forcing people to believe the way you believe is highly problematic. And that is the primary driver we're seeing in UFO discourse today. And I think that's tremendously alarming.
Beautifully put.
Absolutely. Rob, what would you say to combat that? This idea of like UFOs becoming a religion. I mean, UFOs have become a religion. We've had cults. We've had, you know, I'm writing a play right now about the Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
I'm speaking with one of the survivors of that. There were survivors that were not there that day when that fateful event happened. And just speaking to this person has just like changed my entire outlook on like how powerful belief can be and how unbelievably dangerous it can be at times too. But what do you think? Like, I know on your show, you never even broached the topic of Elizondo, of David Grush, of any of the government involvement with this topic, where other shows did. I did. Like, I can fully admit, like I've met Elizondo. He seems like a really nice guy and stuff like that. But there's no denying that I have seen, as this topic has gone on, like people like these intelligence officials getting more and more involved, and it becoming like you're either with us or you're against us. So for someone like you who really took your show in down a different path, I guess, what do you think of where we are today? And where I don't want to get to where do you think we should be going yet. That's our future section. But yeah, what are your observations about ufology right now?
I remember when I first really broke into this space online in the UFO community, and there were idiots on the internet that were putting my name on blog posts about people that you can't trust in this field and stuff like that. And
we've all been there.
Yeah, like it's I wear it with a badge of honor. I have always seen in the research that I've done, and I've long since felt that UFOs are a countercultural type of phenomenon. It is not, it may have been the government that spearheaded the investigations for a long time, but they were not the only ones. There were a ton of civilian organizations, and I think that's important to point out. The government did have some of the best files on its hands and had some of the best cases that, you know, the civilian groups did get their hands on, but it has always seemed like a countercultural movement. Whether you're, you know, however you feel about the contactees, they still had a countercultural message, which was cut it with the nukes. It's going to kill us. Yeah, I don't.
They were the original race.
Yeah,
who can
basically
argue that?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, that message has always carried through the phenomenon. There have been so many people that have come forward saying that these aliens are telling them not, you know, to to be more environmentally friendly, all the way up to 94 with the Ariel school landing and such. So for me to see it as a purely government promoted thing has always been a bit of a red flag for me. And I'm not going to say that, the government officials that have had experiences are, discounted here. I don't think you can really discount anybody's experiences unless they're outright hoaxing. But it has always felt like this topic has gone from not just a military, like even throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was like a potpourri of like military encounters and people's personal encounters and that sort of thing, to the point where it's like you need to believe these military people, otherwise you're very, very bad and I don't like you, and I'm gonna slander your name all over the internet.
Why do you hate America?
Why do you hate
America?
Yeah.
Seriously, like it went from Ed Walters saying it is un-American for aliens to abduct him to it is un-American not to believe in these people. It's so wild to me. That's why I don't like broaching that particular subject, because it is very sensitive. It is hard to approach it from a middle of the road kind of thing, because like anybody can look at what I've done. And yeah, I have beliefs on the topics, but normally when I present my cases, I don't generally throw a ton of belief at it. Like I have friends who will like tack on theories on their podcasts, as to what this stuff is. That's not really what I'm about. It's actually kind of boring to me to do that. It is like unless you can really take this topic into something, it's just like, oh yeah, it's aliens. Oh yeah, it's interdimensional beings. It's like, explain that though. Like you're just like tacking it on. I like whatever. But like to me, and I was on Steve's podcast last week, and there was an interesting point that Jerome Clark made in an article about this one couple's encounter with a UFO and some really strange humanoids. And he talked about, he was wrong in part of it when he said, the youth has a kind of mind to reject technology, even though that's not true. We've embraced technology full-heartedly. Like, kids have tablets and phones and stuff now. So like rejecting technology is not it. But his idea and what he was getting at is like, what if at some point the phenomenon disappears because of a rejection of technology? And to me, because a lot of the way in which UFOs are covered today is you don't really get a lot of civilian stuff unless you are perusing like websites. MUFON's not exactly the most transparent with its data, although it pretends to be. It'll give some data to some people, but it doesn't really have a database that's accessible to everybody. Given that it has changed so much, it's almost as if the phenomenon has... I always think that the phenomenon has kind of abandoned us a little bit. And that it is either changed or it's no longer interested in us. So in that line of things, it's just I don't like the way things are, and that's fine. I don't have to like the way things are, but if you want to consider this ufology, I think this is a tiny sliver of what ufology can be. It can be better.
Yeah.
Amen, man. Yeah, and circling back to the whole artistic thing, like if these UFOs or intelligence behind them or source, whatever you want to call it, is trying to communicate with us in an artistic way, they're probably looking at how we're broaching the topic now and being like, oh, I think we severely overestimated these people.
Yeah.
They're drawing stick figures, and we're over here painting Picasso. So
Mhm.
let's give them another 2,000 years, and we'll come
Yeah.
back. We'll come back.
Yeah.
It's interesting because everyone asks me now, like, how come we don't hear about close encounter cases anymore, or a lot of UFO landings, or even abductions? You know, if you
Yeah.
do believe that those are an actual physical thing.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I don't have an answer for that. Like, I could pose theories, as Rob said, like maybe it was it was a product of its time. You know, that's
Right.
something I would often say. And I
One of
do
the
actually
things
believe
that
that.
one of the things that I actually said to Steve last week was like, what if the phenomenon has actually become so mundane we can barely recognize it, and it only plays a small, tiny purpose in our lives, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
we're done with these grandiose displays. They're getting the small things that they're gonna kind of forget about, but they're gonna remember it a little while,
Right.
and then it's just
Right.
like, oh yeah, it happened, and
Yeah.
they'll go on about their day. You know,
Did,
like
did, did my
that.
cat? Did my cat just talk? What was?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Steve, I'm going to throw it to you, and then we're going to head into the future, guys. But what do you make of ufology today? As
Yeah.
I
I
would
mean,
say, like, you're kind of the newest to all of
I
this.
am. I am. Well, I've long not been super. I mean, I was at one time when I was young. I was really all about the military angle, and like, they had the secrets. But now I think the only thing, honestly, I'm sure they have more data. I am not convinced whatsoever that they have recovered craft or alien bodies. I mean, that has been put out by the Hal Puthoffs and Kit Greens of the world. And no offense to those guys, they may be lovely. I don't trust them at all. And I mean, like, I think they have a lot more data for sure. But I think maybe the thing that they don't want to disclose is that they have no idea what this this phenomenon represents or is any better than we do, right? I also think it is important for people to getting into this topic. I have a friend who's recently in the last 2 years gotten really into this. And I recommended two books right away, and that was Messengers of Deception by Jacques Vallée and Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks. I'm like, before you invest too much time in this, you need to know what to watch out for. And, because I think these books are so important to read right now. Mirage Men I put in there, Project Beta I put in there. But that's some of the UFO homework that isn't fun for a lot of people, is to dispel a lot of these UFO myths that have been, like Jason so eloquently said, created by our own government with an agenda. So it's been a long time since I've really cared about what the military or government says about UFOs, because it's coming from a place of agenda that they're following the orders from someone else. So like Rob was saying, I am far more interested in a case from Farmer Joe out in Indiana who has a craft land in his backyard. Civilian cases to me are, while many people just brush them off aside, I think they should be taken just as seriously as anything else. So, and those are the ones that I guess tickle my fancy artistically a little bit more. Like, I just find the political thriller aspect of modern ufology the most boring genre they could pick. Like, I miss the weirdo days of the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, where it was just the stories are so surreal and abstract and wonderful. And maybe that stuff is still happening today. It's just not being reported upon. I don't know. But like, I do feel that like UFOs are really kind of boring, at least the mainstream ufology. Like, people who are so interested in the activism aspect of disclosure, I'm like, maybe it just seems so boring to me. Like, it's become so political. And it's like Jason was saying, it's like, if you don't believe what we believe, then you're one of them. You're a debunker. I'm like, that's not what it means. Like, I saw Michael Huntington was on earlier. Like, Michael Huntington loves UFOs, loves UFO culture, but he is not afraid to point out the BS in it. And I think that's important. And I love Michael for that. And like, I think sometimes he gets a lot of heat from it. Like, I know he's been like approached at UFO conferences and stuff like that, but like, he's telling the truth. He's like, because Hal Puthoff says Roswell was absolutely real, that's not evidence. And that guy has, like, he said he infiltrated Scientology to learn more about Scientology for the CIA. It's like, we cannot trust these people. I'm sorry. So like, and like, he is he interesting? Sure, he's an interesting figure and all this stuff, but like, the government and the military, I do not feel is the end all be all. They're not the arbiter of what the truth is behind this stuff. So if you're waiting for the military or the government to tell you what the mystery of UFOs is, good luck.
And Steve, I just want to jump in and add on to that, because with our discussion of current ufology and what the government and military are saying, it's so bizarre, and it goes to exactly what you were saying about not listening to what they're saying, because it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything, because everything these elected officials are saying, the ones who are the loudest and out there giving interviews about UFOs and starting these committees and everything, are getting everything they know about UFOs from UFO researchers.
Absolutely.
So it's just this circle going around and around, and people are celebrating and thinking this is great. Aha, we have, these government and military people saying this, and that means it's true. No, it doesn't mean it's true. It means you got somebody to listen to you and regurgitate the established lore that's been there all the time. This isn't anything new. Yep. They're not saying anything or verifying anything. They're just regurgitating.
100%. And these disclosure kind of movements have happened before, right? And while this one's definitely, because of social media, I think, has blown up into a big story that mainstream media is covering from time to time, that doesn't make it more valid to me at all. Like, I do not think it's going to go anywhere. But I mean, like, I'm sure I'd love to be wrong, but like, I just feel like I'm not going to be on this one. So
yeah, I think sort of a way to sum up for me personally right now, having done now 400 episodes of the podcast, hundreds of other, and I guess auxiliary sort of shows, and writing the books, all of that stuff that I've done in this topic. What I think we're missing now in UFOs in 2025 is the UFOs.
Yes.
Like, where are they? So literally, like, why are people not reporting them as much? Why are we not hearing about the more outlandish claims? And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean, like, UFOs used to be super weird, and that's what we loved about it. Yeah. But where are the UFOs today? It's all about getting the Disclosure Act passed, or starting a task force to Jesus, to see who shot JFK. Like, it's, I understand.
Or here we don't have any UFOs, so here's a balloon, a drone, and an airplane. And trust me, they're not balloons, drones, and airplanes. They're just UFOs that look like drones, UFOs.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And welcome.
We've made UFOs so dumb. We've made UFOs so dumb.
Yeah,
we've made UFOs.
We've sucked any intelligence there was, or like the interesting stuff, the mystery, and like what like, we're all the same age-ish, and like I think what we probably love about UFOs might be a little bit different, but like there's a core love that we all have. I love the UFO, and when I say I love the UFO, I mean I like the culture, the ephemera, the art that's inspired from it. And all that cool stuff has just kind of been sucked out a little bit. And I'm not trying to sound like old man complaining hour, but like, it's the writing, you can look for yourself. It is wrapped up, like Ryan was saying, in disclosure acts. And that's not what we're not talking about, the phenomenon, actually. We're talking about political strides. And that to me is like pretty boring. Because in terms of politics, there's bigger things going on.
There's bigger things going on in the world. Like, activate that sort of thing, but in the meantime, like, you don't have to focus your energy on trying to get some bill passed or wondering what these former intelligence people think. Like, maybe that's interesting, but just go outside, like, look up in the sky, go to a UFO conference, talk to someone who's seen a UFO, share your stories with one another.
Like, and like Rob was,
that stuff happens.
Yeah, like Rob was saying, like the military government angle should and definitely can be a slice of ufology.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't need to be the whole pie. It's like the whole, like, things were definitely more interesting in the past decades because there were so many like little sub areas that people were looking into and studying and known for and writing about. And that's when it was so interesting, is that you had some like really interesting, curious minds who were coming from different angles. And I think diversity and everything is wonderful. So
Yeah. It seems, Steve, that the scales have sort of tipped right
Mhm.
now, and I'm hoping that the weight starts to go back towards more of the weird stuff. I mean,
Be
and
beautiful.
like that kind of brings us to sort of now in the future. Like, yeah, we've got some intelligence people saying that they're like summoning UFOs psychically. That's cool. That's woo woo. That's weird. Like, I'm all for that, but
Go for
like
it.
the fact that it's all these former intelligence people worries me too.
Me
So
too.
I don't know. I don't want this show to sound like, we're four white dudes here complaining about the state of ufology. Like, yeah, that's a little bit of what we're doing, but
Yeah.
we also, like you said, we all love this topic for
Yeah.
so many reasons.
It's
We
because we
talked about,
care. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's because we care. Exactly, man.
Love
Like,
that,
that's
Steve.
tough
Yeah.
love.
You know,
If
well,
there's
it is,
one,
but
if there's one controversial, I'm going to say this entire thing, and one thing that I think a lot of people need to understand, and I'm not going to say this is the be all end all, but largely the UFO topic has been a white man's game. And that's
Yep.
going to upset some people. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not saying that, I'm discounting what other people are saying, but what I'm saying is largely this has been a topic around white people. So, like, one thing that I think needs to be understood here is like there is a cultural element that is sorely lacking in looking at other cultures and how they view this topic. And I've always long since felt that way. And I've dedicated some episodes and stuff to it, but while it is a military topic right now, it is also vastly is very single race minded. So
And I will
that's
say,
gonna
since
upset some
we're
people.
before we go to the future, you're talking about the current and some of the problems with current discourse is the people who are now the spokespeople for UFOs, let's say, the ones doing all of the interviews and essentially leading the narrative that is currently used for UFOs. We've gotten back to that sorely incorrect notion that UFOs is just a thing in the United States, right? We're very us-centric here.
yeah.
And that hasn't been the case. And in anybody who spent any time doing real UFO research would know about just the wealth of cases and information from around the globe. And we have people, like Lou and these others who, present this as like it's a new thing, like, oh, we're discovering now that there are things happening around the world, and we're just starting to bring people on board from other nations to collaborate on this. That's all been done before. Other countries have their own UFO investigation groups. Other governments have and do investigate UFOs, have released countless documentation about their investigations. Like, this isn't a new thing, but it's being presented as new. So we start back over. Again, UFOs are cyclical. UFO history is cyclical. All these things from the past come back into our present discussion. And that's happened again. Just one of these ridiculous things, this notion that, oh, well, why don't we hear about UFOs in other parts of the world? Or why do we only hear about them in America? Well, that's not the case. If you bother to pay attention or look at history, that is absolutely not the case. The United States is a small sliver in the UFO pie.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look at Rob's show. Look at Steve's show.
Yes.
Like, hear cases from throughout the world, for
I
sure.
mean, if you look at like groups like APRO back in the day, they had representatives from all over the world. We're talking Brazil, Argentina, countries in Europe, countries in Africa. Like, it is a global topic, and yet it never feels like it is treated like a global topic.
Agreed.
Like, these days.
James
ever.
Fox documentaries cover UFO events throughout the world. Yeah, good point. Thank you guys for the comments. I know we haven't been getting to them. I knew this would happen with a panel discussion, but we'll get to a few of those towards the end here, guys. Okay. Anything else before we move on to the future, guys?
No, I'm excited to race to the future. Let's go.
Let's race. Let's go into the future. Okay. Where do we want it to go? I mean, we spent the last, 30 minutes talking about where we've been, where we are, but where do you hope this topic goes? Do you hope it goes further? Have we reached, the fever pitch of mundanity, is that a word when it comes to this topic? Or do you think we're going to enter a new era of weirdness? Or what are your hopes, your wishes, your aspirations with this topic? Rob, let's start with you, man.
I think for a large part, and even up until now, I kind of feel like it's been coasting from the 80s all the way to now with just like disinformation, people coming forward saying the government's lying to you, blah, 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 blah. I would hope for a level of nuance to return to this topic so that like you get a full picture of it, because I don't think people are getting a full picture of what this topic is. And what I mean by that is, in 10 years of research, going back and reading old issues of like the April Bulletin, Flying Saucer Review, all of the magazines and zines that were dedicated to this topic, and the books and stuff like that. It is a very nuanced topic. It is seen different through different cultural views throughout the world. A good example of this is in certain countries in Southern Africa. They do not view these phenomenon as aliens from another planet. They view them as ancestral ghosts. Yeah. It's very different for a lot of different people. There was actually a paper that I remember finding on John Mack's website about it seemed like they were just starting to do that, and I think some of it made its way into Passport to the Cosmos. But like looking at like all of these other cultures, I just really hope the topic becomes more nuanced. It becomes more open, and we're being treated to a bunch of different experiences and cases that like provide a depth to this topic that I think it is just sorely lacking right now, just because of where it is placed in this culture right now as a political topic. It needs to go beyond that, because it is a cultural topic. It is like you can't ignore the politics of it, but if it just goes beyond that, that would be great. So if anything, just a lot more nuance and a lot more openness when it comes to this topic.
I like that. Steve, let's move to you, buddy. What do you hope for the future of ufology, if there is a future?
Yeah, well, I think there will be. I think there will always be some aspect of it that's around. But like I mean, this sounds like I'm a Midwest guy, but so it's gonna be very fitting. But like, I hope UFOs become folksy again, and like more smaller communities. I feel like destroy the big UFO organizations and the smaller little like localized group ones, like a one in Northern Ohio or something like that. These small groups that are looking locally at what's around them. I'm a big believer in the idea of like if you're into this stuff, weird stuff, 40 on, it's like you don't need to always like research things that are far away and dream about going to them. There is weird stuff all around you. There is such a weird history of every state, of every country. Like there just is. And whether or not it's folklore, that doesn't matter to me. But I feel like doing these small boots on the ground, talking to local people. And I think if these like you could network these like little local groups and they could discuss together, we might really get somewhere, or at least start asking better questions. Because like we keep on saying, like, what's going on in UFOs really? We don't hear much about it. I think that's because everything's become, not to use a capitalistic analogy, but like it's been so corporatized and so gatekeeper. Like you said, the trust me, bro. I know. In 2 months, I can release the information. It's so big and corporatized and exploited, I think. And I would love it to be more like I would join a group of like Eastern Nebraska UFO lovers. We don't have to be call ourselves researchers, but we get together, go eat Chinese food once a month. We talk about what's going on locally. That to me feels like it's so much more productive than writing my local senator a 2-page letter on why they should disclose UFOs. If I'm going to write my senator, it's going to be about much more pressing issues.
Yeah.
So that's I don't think people need to get up in arms and also I feel like I feel like UFOs also, like, I used to talk to people, we would have different ideas about what it meant and, theorize and, do thought experiments. And there wasn't this like antagonizing. Like, it's so like, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're a skeptic or a debunker. And that is so counterproductive to me. Like, we can all, even if all four of us have completely different viewpoints on the stuff, this is such a nice conversation where, like, and it is, and I'm learning a lot just by having this conversation. And I think UFOs are a great lens to learn, to ask bigger questions about life. And I think if people looked at it like that and not took it so personally and seriously, we might be better off. It might be more fun too. I think UFOs should be fun, first and foremost. I think they should. If you're not having fun with UFOs, what are you doing?
Right.
Like,
Honestly, and
let's
to
replace
add
the
on to that,
flying in UFO with
Yeah.
fun, please. Sorry.
yes.
To just add on to that, I think this topic, like when UFOs are wholly embraced, they help us to ask more important and better questions of ourselves, more than it does about anything else out there. Like
Mhm.
it does help us to like really look in at who we are, and like, man, I don't like what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But I love you guys, and because we all love
Yeah.
UFOs, we're talking right now, and I consider you all friends, and that is a beautiful thing to me. That's what life
Totally,
is all
man.
about.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
everyone, says they want disclosure. They want to know that the aliens are out there or the non-human intelligence is out there. So, okay, let's say we get to that point. We find out what UFOs are. There's probably 1,000 different reasons for all of them. But let's just say, like, we get the answers. Okay, now what?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
there's a reason we all want to know the answers to UFOs, and those reasons are going to change, like all of you have said. I know I sound redundant. There's a reason that we all want to know, and that's very personal. Like, we all supposedly get one chance at this life, at least in these vessels, as it were. So, like, we want to know. We want the answers to all the big questions. Why are we here? Are we alone? All that. Let's say we get the answer to one of those questions. Are we alone? There's a reason we're asking that.
Yeah.
And it's not just to know, are we alone or not? I want to know that we're not alone so that I can know that it's possible to like get along with another species out there when our own species can't get along with one another for various different reasons.
Right.
So yeah, I think Rob's right. Like, this topic has always put a mirror back on ourselves, and I've always appreciated that about it. And I feel like we've sort of like dropped that mirror, and we're kind of staring into a void right now in this topic. And I just want those days back where we can look in the mirror and find ourselves in this topic, in this mystery,
Yeah.
and find a purpose. Like, that's why I love being in this topic. Like, it gives me personal purpose in my life.
Yeah.
I do other things. We all do other things with our time and with our loved ones and with friends and family and everything else. But at the end of
And
the
I'm
day,
retired, so
and you're retired.
You're on the beach, baby. The UFO
Reaping
beach.
those benefits, I know. But yeah, like I guess this is my long-winded way of saying, like, we all love this topic. I know we've criticized it in many ways tonight, but like Steve said, we're doing it because we love it. We're not trying to change anyone's minds. We're not here to say you're wrong, we're right. We're here to say, like, let's get back to the UFOs in ufology so we can have conversations like this.
Bingo.
So I guess that's my
and maybe
way.
some clown pants too. Can we get some clown pants?
Can we
in
get
here?
some damn
I need
clown pants?
Some clown pants.
Where's that Sandown clown?
Yeah.
I like that one too with the microphone,
best.
Rob. I love
So
that case.
good.
Jason, let's get to you, buddy. The future of ufology. What are you looking forward to, if anything, and where do you personally want to go with the topic moving forward?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess back to my point of UFOs being cyclical, I definitely see that happening, right? I don't think there's any way we're going to get around that. Humans will always be humans, and those same things that have been in UFO history are going to come around many times again. But I think for me, and I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but the way we talk about UFOs is fundamentally flawed. It really is. UFO discourse is broken, and it has to completely change if we want anything with UFO research to change. Because pretty much everything we hear in conversations about UFOs is lore based. It's based on established lore. And even we as researchers and the leading UFO researchers are completely guilty of this. And that is relying on lore, right? We don't ever go back and fact check, the authors of books that we've read or researchers we've talked to. Everybody just relies on lore that's been established and points to it and says, oh, well, we know this, so therefore this.
Right.
Well, how do we know that? Right? I mean, it's a big problem that we just keep regurgitating this information that we've been given, because we as researchers and people communicating about this topic to the public are being very irresponsible just regurgitating, right? Because that becomes more in line with indoctrination rather than education. We're doing, I like to say, lore-based indoctrination over fact-based education. And we're not going to get anywhere with that mindset, right? We're not trying to please people. We're not trying to, make people feel good. We're after the truth, wherever that may lead. And as we said, I mean, this is an individual pursuit for everybody. And I hate to break it to people, there are no grand UFO answers, right? You're not going to find something that says, aha, I now have the answer to UFOs, because UFOs as a topic itself is a flawed concept. There is no UFO phenomenon, right? We group these things together because it's convenient or, for whatever reason. And now calling them UAP makes it even more ridiculous, because we're essentially talking about all strange things, right? So that just opens it up to Bigfoot, right? Bigfoot is a UAP, right? Because he's anomalous, right? We took it away from the sky and now it's just anomalous. So Bigfoot is a UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena. It's become ridiculous, right? So, I mean, the topic itself is kind of become a joke, and we have to move away from that. We have to reframe how we converse about this topic, even at the congressional level and everything you hear on the news. And when UFO, spokespeople go on the news and do a UFO segment, they're restating these false claims or flawed rhetoric that keeps getting stated over and over, like the big government lie, right? The government's lied to you. You're being lied to. Well, what is that lie? We rarely hear what that lie is. It's not articulated. But what the premise is that the government has told us that UFOs don't exist when actually they do. And that's completely false, because the government repeatedly states UFOs are real. Yeah. Even their most recent reports say UFOs are real. So in these conversation pieces saying, oh, the government lies to you, they tell you UFOs don't exist, that is 100% false. And if we as UFO researchers and people communicating to the public can't even get our facts straight, and we're continuing to share and push false narratives, false information, that's on us that UFOs are in the toilet, right? We all have to be better, and it has to be a group effort. But, sorry to be pessimistic, I don't see that happening, because we're all humans, right? And people have their own motivations for doing what they do. And right now we're seeing lots of attention-hungry people, including Congress members, sort of using UFOs as a game for their own personal attention. Yeah. So, that is, again, adding more stigma and ridicule to the topic rather than lessening it. So we have to get away from all of that. If we want anything to improve, we have to embrace and communicate this idea to people that it is an individual pursuit. We all come up with our own determinations about this. We don't have smoking gun evidence to prove that we have recovered alien bodies and crash saucers and all this. No, of course not. As objective researchers, we have to entertain all possibilities, right? That's what we do. We entertain all possibilities, but we still follow the facts. We still follow the evidence we have. And when we don't have that, we have to communicate responsibly. We have to point to our sources and say, well, according to so-and-so, or this person says that allegedly this happens, but we don't see any of that in any of these news stories we see on the TV of these people talking about UFOs. They're stating things as absolute fact and telling people, you have to believe this because this person said so, and that means it's real, and anything else is a complete big lie, right? We just, our communication is broken on this. We need to be more honest and view UFOs for what they are. And that is a whole lot of different things that we don't understand. Enjoy the mystery of it. Try to figure it out if we can, and enjoy the ride. And if you're not, I don't know what you're doing. But I agree with you, Ryan. We need to get back to community. That's one of the big things that drew me into the UFO subject. We talked about the conference at the beginning. UFO conferences used to be so much fun.
They did.
Right? They were a
really
welcoming atmosphere. You could go. And of course, nobody shared the same beliefs because we all have different beliefs. Nobody believes the same exact way about everything related to UFOs. We're all individual people. We have our own individual ideas, but we have this shared love for this fascinating and weird topic. And at conferences, we could get together, and we were just part of that community. We were all weird together, and that was magical. I mean, we would see people like Stanton Friedman and John Alexander, debate each other on stage, and people in the audience thought, oh, this is very tenuous and uncomfortable, and they don't like each other. But right after, they went over to the casino and had lunch together. I mean, they were all friends, right? We were all friends and researchers and colleagues. That's how it worked. But now everything is so divisive and people want to outdo each other. It's ridiculous. So I want to get back to that community and ultimately just communicate to people. You do you, right? This is your life, your pursuit, your interest. You do it. You don't need the government. You don't need UFO researchers. You just need you. UFOs are everywhere. Go outside, spend some time, and you'll see it. You don't need to pray to them with Stephen Greer and have them think they're going to come flash their headlights at you. I mean, that's ridiculous. Just go outside, look in the sky. The sky is absolutely littered. I've seen countless UFOs, and I think other people can too. You don't need to pray or do any special thing or pay thousands of dollars to some scam artist to show you how. UFOs are everywhere. People don't control UFOs. So you don't need anybody else. You just need you. If you want to use other people for their resources, for their information, bounce ideas off each other, and get back to just philosophy, because that's what a lot of this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just talking about possibilities, ideas, these concepts that we can just bounce off each other and kind of think about this weird reality we live in. And the last thing I'll say is, for the future of ufology, I really hope this whole charge for disclosure goes away, because disclosure to me is an absolute non-issue, and it always has been. You're not going to get any more from the government than you already have. And the government has told you time and time and time again the same answer you're going to get. Yes, UFOs are real. There are a lot of different things. Most can be explained as mundane objects. Some can't. There you go. That's disclosure. You've received it many times over. You're not getting anything else. So, we keep saying things under the guise of disclosure, but ultimately people are waiting to have their desired beliefs echoed. And that's what we're seeing right now with a lot of the Congress members just saying these things, and people are saying, yay, vindicated, validated, because they're saying what I want to hear. Well, they're not telling you that or providing you any proof for these things. They're just echoing what you want to hear. And that's great. That does it for some people, not for me. But ultimately, disclosure isn't a thing. You shouldn't hope for it. It's already happened. Move along. We don't need it. We don't need it. All right.
I love that. Yeah. I'll tattoo that on my back. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa, man. That's going to be a big tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. That was
tattoo.
But
so, in other words,
right.
In other words, we're starting a UFO religion. So anybody that wants to sign up now, you're more than welcome. We are going to be offering a class on how to contact Venusians. The 10 ways you can do it. We've got this grift on lock.
Yes.
We've got this on lock, baby. Venusians all the way. I love it, man. Better communicators, hold each other accountable. And I think, last but not least, touch some grass. It's easy for us to say, being here, doing a stream, but like Jason said, there are conferences you can go to. Suzanne went to the Soul Conference recently, and I'm sure she met some incredible people and had amazing conversations. And that's what we need to return to. And it's still happening. Like, we're not saying that everything's dead. Like, all of this is bad. Like, there's really good stuff going on. Like Steve said, there's independent groups that you can look into. There's just so many ways to be involved in this topic. And at the end of the day, like, don't listen to the four of us. Listen to your gut. Listen to yourself.
Absolutely.
Look up in the sky and you decide what you saw. Don't rely on anyone else to tell you what you saw. So, I mean, we could keep talking circles around this, as Jason would say. Like, UFOs are cyclical. That's not always a bad thing. But I think at the end of the day, like, if it weren't for this topic, I wouldn't be here talking to the three of you. So, if anything, I'm thankful for that. I don't give a shit what UFOs are. I don't think I'm ever going to know. Like Jacques Vallée said, I'll probably go to my deathbed not knowing, and I'm completely fine with that.
I'm convinced that's the case.
Absolutely, man.
100%.
Like,
and if it wasn't for this topic, I wouldn't be sorely in debt from buying books. Okay.
But like what Jason said about enjoying the mystery is like my thesis statement with this stuff. Like, I first and foremost, even above a 40, I am a mystery junkie. Mystery is what gets me out of bed. It's an important aspect to life, to wonder. And that's what UFOs as a kid and still today really provide me. And that's why I would feel so warm and fuzzy and passionate about it. And I defend ufology, even though maybe I shouldn't sometimes. But like, I think if you can just get over the answer and just say, like, this mystery is amazing, and where's it going to take me, and what kind of people will I meet, what kind of ideas will flow through my head. It is such a great lens to use through a mysterious life. So I just want to say, I agree with you. I love that. It's perfect for me.
Love it. Chef's kiss, baby. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. I've kept you far longer than anticipated. This is an awesome conversation of UFOs, past, present, future. I learned so much, and that is the point. That's why I started the podcast. That's why I will continue to do the podcast. And I just want to thank everyone throughout the years for listening to the show, for supporting my work, for supporting your guys' work as well. For you guys giving me a chance and coming on my show and having me as guests on yours. That's what it's all about. Living in that mystery. I will continue to do that. I'm so thankful that people still want to take this ride with me, and that includes E3 as well. So that being said, this is a celebration today. This is not a death.
And congratulations, 400, man.
Yeah, man.
That's quite an accomplishment. I'm very proud of you. I'm so happy.
Hey, man, couldn't have done it without you guys and all the incredible listeners, viewers, and supporters throughout the years. But yeah, let's wrap it up. I want to know what you guys. I'm getting the note from Suzanne. My poll. I always forget to read the poll, so I'm gonna go to the. This will be an interesting little way to end things, guys. Let me refresh it. We did a poll over on YouTube. What is the best decades of ufology? I had to group these in 20 years. So we had the 50s and 60s, 70s and 80s, 90s to 2000s, 2000s to 2020. It doesn't really involve what's going on now, but we'll group that into the 2020s. So our poll has 50s and 60s at 35%. We had 70s and 80s at 23%, 90s to 2000s at 6%, and 2000s to 2020s, 35%. So the 50s and the 2000s are neck and neck. So pretty interesting.
Beginning and the end. Yeah.
Yeah. The beginning, the Alpha Omega. Yeah. I love that. Thank you guys. Thank you for taking part in the poll. What do you guys think of the poll results? And what's your favorite decade of ufology? If you had to pick one, Rob, let's go with you, buddy.
If I had to pick just one, in all of the years of doing research, I would say the most interesting stuff, man, it is tough. I think you got the full scale of everything in the 60s. Like, you got more wide acceptance of like the humanoid topic. You got things like angel hair. You got things like alien abductions. You got a lot of famous cases from the period. You got Mothman. You got all of that stuff lumped in, and I think the '60s is kind of where I think it produced a lot of great data, and it produced a lot of great cases that we still talk about today.
A lot of good music too. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Oh
Couldn't
yeah.
agree more.
Yeah. It was a great decade. Yeah.
Love it. Jason, how about you, buddy? Do you have a favorite decade of ufology?
Got to be the '60s, man. I mean, and the artwork from that time too is really cool. But the photos, the civilian research groups. I mean, the APRO bulletins alone are just absolute gold. I love them. And I know those extended into the '80s and stuff. And you know, yeah, just the organizations that were doing the research, the cases, the imagery. '60s for me.
Love it. Steve, how about you, man?
I'm going to say the 1970s. I love the 60s, but for me, the 70s cases are amazing. I'm such a huge fan of Stan Gordon's work, where there's a book called Sound Invasion about the 1973-74 Bigfoot UFO flap. And I love the conjunction of when high strangest things cross over. But yeah, the 70s for me, I think just aesthetically too, I love the look of the book covers and just the ephemera of the. I mean, 60s and 70s honestly is a tie for me. But I'll say 70s to be different. I like a lot of the 80s too. I think towards the end of the 80s, it kind of sort of became what it more is today. But I think most of the 80s was pretty cool. And in terms of like the characters in the 80s, like the John Lears we were talking about before, like there was just fun characters. Like, I mean, the people watching at like a MUFON conference in 1986 must have been incredible. I would love to go. I would have loved to have been at the Bill Moore 1989 conference. That's a time machine destination for me. In Vegas.
Vegas is the perfect place for that too.
Hell yeah. You know? Hell yeah. They were trying to split up the conference, like Bill Moore, or not Bill Moore, but like what's his face? The militia dude. God, why can't Behold the Pale Horse?
Bill Cooper.
Bill Cooper.
Bill Cooper.
Yeah, I mean,
what I find
insane.
so fascinating about that conference is like you had that big time stuff happening. You had a lot of cool stuff like what was it? Hynek's secretary, Jenny. I forget her name. God dang it.
Oh right.
She was she presented on the 73 coin helicopter case. There's a lot of really good cases that were presented in that conference. If you get the correspondence, which is still out there, and it doesn't have the Bill Moore stuff in it, but it has everything else, and it's pretty great.
The 80s were solid. 80s were solid.
Yeah. 80s are solid. Yeah. I'm gonna have to play
Ed Walters, baby.
Ed Walters.
Man.
Rob's favorite.
He is my favorite.
I'm actually doing an episode coming up on the podcast about the Gulf Breeze 6. Such a fascinating incident, mixing Gulf Breeze with religion and the military.
So crazy. It's amazing.
It's just a big soup of everything. I love it. And I'm
gonna
have to go with 60s.
Yeah.
I'd love to think of Ed Walters as the Antichrist, like they thought of him. So like.
I could see that. I could see that, man. Oh gosh, the Catholic in me. All right, calling someone the Antichrist. Not cool. Not cool. Why did someone say bootyful in the chat? Anyways, let me go to the star chat and see if I'm missing anything, and then we are out of here, gentlemen. Everyone just said, good job, Jason, for UFOs are. I love it. A lot of congratulations. Thank you, guys. Truly, truly do appreciate that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you again. Let us know where we can find everything you're up to, what you are up to, and yes, where people can reach out to you with that now target on your back for coming out today. So, Rob, let's start with you, man.
You will never find me. No. Let's just say there's too much snow where I am, so good luck. I have a UFO themed webcomic that we're we're in the beginning stages of our second volume, very beginning. But it's called Welcome UFO People. We are on Instagram and X, and we do have a book available for purchase that you can find the link to over on those social media platforms. I also have a Substack.
Highly recommended, by the way.
Thank you. Yes, you did feature some of them
Yes,
in
highly
your
recommended.
zine, and I
Yep.
appreciate that. I also have Substack where I write stories, but I also publish like old humanoid cases that I come across. It's called Foolology, FOOLOGY.substack.com. And I actually posted one this morning about these weird humanoids in a half moon object. So if you find that interesting, you can go check that out. Please read it and give me compliments. I need them. Thank you.
Positive reinforcement, baby. No, great work, Rob, as always. Steve,
thank you.
Where can we find everything you're up to, buddy?
Yeah, I have a podcast called Hi Strangeness, like I'm saying hi to it. It's HI, Strangeness, and go check it out. We talk about weird stuff. Also, my social media is Bergmaster5000. You can find me on most of those platforms. Hell yeah!
Awesome.
This is so fun. Thank you, and congrats, Ryan. I'm happy for you, man. 400 is a big deal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. Jason, last but not least, where can we find everything you're up to, and what are you up to?
Sure thing. So I don't have too much time for UFOs these days, but I do stay. I do my best to keep up with it every day. So my contributions are slim these days, but I do a monthly podcast called UFO UAP WTF, and I publish a weekly newsletter of the same name, UFO UAP WTF, that covers all the biggest headlines of UFO related stories, research, media, upcoming events, things like that. So it's a weekly newsletter. It's a free newsletter, and you can find that on the podcast at UFOUAPWTF.com.
I love it. Oh God, I get so excited when I get that email notification of the newsletter every week. So thank you.
Oh, thanks,
thank
Ryan.
you for that, man.
Yeah.
I truly do.
No, and thank you for today, buddy. Congratulations on 400.
Oh, thank you. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I see all your comments. I really do appreciate all of the support as well. You can find everything we do on social media. Links are down below, somewhereintheskies.com, all that good stuff. And we do a live stream, Suzanne and I, every Sunday, almost every Sunday when we can. So be sure to check that out right here on YouTube. And yeah, I'm going to be heading out to Nova Scotia very soon to continue my ghost hunting endeavors. So I'm super excited about that. But the UFOs never stop, and they will continue for another 400 episodes or more as the mystery continues. So that's going to do it, guys. Jason, Steve, Rob, thank you so much. Thank you, Suzanne, for your wonderful moderating. And I'm going to get us our outro here and talk to these lovely gentlemen for just a moment. And thank you, guys. I'll leave you with our mantra, as always: keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies.